Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. Welcome to today's upload. Before we jump into it, a couple quick links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost you a cent. Click that like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads I put out daily, click the bell icon. And folks, please leave a comment, share the video. Why? Well, these things really do help this channel to continue to grow and go. They definitely do matter, and they are appreciated. And with that, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to today's upload. Shall we? All right, so Wednesday evening into Thursday morning, I had talked to a gentleman, active duty military still to this day. I'm not going to share his rank. I'm going to address him as Peter. That's all I am going to address him as, and the only thing I can say is he's high-ranking Air Force officer, very high-ranking. And on that night that he and I talked, I had made that video Thursday morning stating that I had spoken to a covert military intelligence officer, and he had shared some just absolutely startling information, which I'm going to share with you guys now because I was able to talk to him more on Thursday. Because we had some crazy storms up in the Adirondacks in upstate New York, 30-degree thunder and lightning storms. We lost power. We had some flooding. Absolutely bizarre weather. But also during that period of time, I had lost power. So I'm down here talking to him and unaware of what was going on in the rest of the United States. I just want to send prayers out to the people in Tennessee and all of those other regions that were affected late Wednesday, early Thursday morning by those terrible tornadoes. I pray for everyone who had been affected by those. So it just unbelievable. So he and I talked, and I stated, hey, guys, the information that he shared with me goes hand in hand with what we've been talking about via Dogman, Cryptid, Alien Agenda, Nephilim, Deep Underground Military Base. Everything fits together. The puzzle may not ever be fully put together, but all of the puzzle pieces are there. They are here, and everything that pretty much any theory anybody has, you could tie it to a event that is occurring. So I ended up speaking to this gentleman. He shared his CAC card with me, and he's active duty, like I stated, all the other credentials. So he's, I did verify who he was and such. And what he shared with me and you now is essentially what has been going on for years, since the 50s, since the United States had made some dirty deals, late 40s, early 50s, made some dirty deals with this alien agenda, alien civilizations that are under the earth using portals, stargates, whatever you want to call them, the reptilian, the draconian, the grays. Since the United States the government got their dirty little mitts involved with these people, or creatures, excuse me, people, creating deeper underground military bases, creating terrifying genetic laboratories in these bases to where they can create creatures of any type. You know, you get a genome and you are creating any kind of, especially with the technology that they possess from these alien race or races. So, and I said, it hits with current events that's going on as well. Excuse me. We're going to touch base on all of that, and you are going to have some just... It's not even startling because we knew this shit was going on. It's... Fact is scarier than fiction is a true statement, but how terrifying facts are is unbelievable. And to know that there are people like you and I out there that have no feeling for the rest of humanity, only the success of themselves and whatnot. So current events, the current event, why do you think we want Greenland? For trade? That's what they want us to think, guys. But Greenland has had military bases, underground military bases under the ice sheets for years, since World War II. There's a base in Greenland called Camp Century or Project Iceworm. And there are some other bases there that are doing some horrific things. You know, we talk about Admiral Byrd and the Arctic, the Nazi regime being underground in the northern Arctic and such. That is all true, but why are we fighting so hard for Greenland right now? Well, because we want to keep what we've been doing there ours and no one else's. And that is the current event tie-in right now. What they're doing in Greenland almost mirrors, or it does mirror, but it's far worse than what is occurring in the Eye of Quebec. René Levasseur, there's a deep underground military base on that island in that lake, and it is secluded via where it is, the geographic location of it, and having its own kind of moat around the island, and then you have a deep underground military base on a moated island. So now you've got this iced covered large island that we have controlled. Well, yeah, we have controlled for very long time, and those bases there are incredible, are absolutely incredible from what I was told. They are the government has what Kirk shared with us. Kirk, the gentleman who had ended, I can't say it. I can't say it in a way of ending his suffering of almost 30 years after seeing what was in Mount Shasta. Those creatures that were in that kind of alien zoo. Dogmen, Bigfoot, crawlers, 2 Nephilim that he had seen, and that crazy angelic creature that was in some sort of crucifix kind of stasis or whatever. That's all true. And the reason why they had those chambers is because they are harvesting the DNA from these things to create a super army to actually, he believes that it's to possibly overthrow the alien races that the human race, our governments had struck deals with. But it could be for it could be to overthrow countries. You get an army of Nephilim, an army of Dogmen, an army of angelic creatures. And I only say angelic because that's what they represent or resemble, with the wing structure and this and that. They are far from angels, but I have no better term to coin them as. Imagine having that, and what it'd be unstoppable. And they are doing it. And it's crazy because he's telling me all this. I'm going through looking at this information. Couple days ago, I buy a book and I'm scanning through it earlier Tuesday. He contacts me on Wednesday and it goes hand in hand with what is in there too. And I'm like, holy shit. Here it is. Oh, yesterday's upload, I had in the title, I had put Covert military intelligence, and he had looked at some of the comments just because I told him not to too. I was like, there's some great ones, I said, but then there's the ones that just are haters, and everyone has them no matter what. But there was apparently a person that said covert military intelligence does not exist. That is not even a term to use. And he had a special name for that person. And it does exist. It's a covert military intelligence. The definition of it, and that's why I used the term, is it involves secret activities often conducted by special operation unit or intelligence agencies aimed at gathering information or influencing events abroad while concealing the United States involvement. Covert action is codified in Title 50 U.S. Code as an intelligence activity or activities of the United States government to influence political, economic, or military conditions abroad, where it is intended that the role of the United States will not be apparent or acknowledged publicly. You have deep underground military bases in Greenland, which is not our country. That is specifically covert military intelligence, especially what they're doing there. Now, this is a little bit of information. He said, read this article. And I did, and I was like, whoa, buddy. So, deployed to an Arctic base during the Cold War, this doctor learned his mission's secret purpose decades later. A young doctor was sent to a remote Arctic base during the Cold War, believing it was for scientific research. Decades later, he uncovered the hidden purpose behind his assignment. The truth behind the secret mission remains a chilling part of history. This is actually Camp Century Project Iceworm, a little bit of that. But the base that he had been to multiple times is more so in the middle of Greenland. But this only gives credence to what he shared with me. If they're doing this in tricking a doctor back in the 60s, what do you think they're doing now? In the early 60s, the United States military constructed a research station beneath the Greenland ice sheet known as Camp Century. What initially appeared to be a polar research facility was, in fact, a covert project tied to the intense Cold War rivalry between the United States and the Soviet Union. Operating from 1960 until 67, Camp Century served as a testing ground for Project Iceworm, a secret plan to create missile launch sites buried deep under the Arctic ice. The goal was to gain a strategic edge by positioning missiles closer to Russia, potentially giving the United States a better advantage in the event of a conflict. So that's what they were. Dr. Robert Weiss, who served as a physician at Camp Century in 62 to 63, remembers his time there as a formative experience. However, the camp's true military purpose remained a mystery to him and other staff until decades later when the Pentagon declassified certain documents. Not all documents, certain. And there is shit going on still there to this day. Weiss recalls, "We were told that one of our main aims of Camp Century was to prove that an isolated installation could be safely and efficiently powered by nuclear energy. At the time, none of the personnel knew about the military's grander plans for the site." So they were essentially running these bases by nuclear energy. Something that, it is clean. Is it dangerous? Sure, but everything's dangerous. But, they were testing that back then. But how are you going to run a deep underground military base? Not on electricity. You need nuclear power to, especially with all of the laboratory and testing and everything else going on there. So that is, this is an interesting scientific achievement and legacy at Camp Century. Despite its hidden military agenda, Camp Century also left a significant mark on the scientific research. Particularly in climate science, the base was one of the first locations where scientists successfully drilled a core from the Greenland ice sheet. The ice core provided crucial insights into Earth's paleoclimate, revealing conditions that existed over 100,000 years ago. So there is that. The big reason why they do it in these areas of frozen lands is essentially, one, a protective barrier, but two, there is thousands and thousands of years of information stored in that ice. You also can take advantage of that and put things on ice, no pun intended. Now, like I said, with these harvesting of DNA, one thing that he said to me is, "Jeff, why do you think a lot of these giants have red hair that are found in the Middle East, that are found here, that are there and there and there, everywhere throughout the world?" He had said that there had been 2 or 3 different giant Nephilim-like creatures that had to be taken care of in Afghanistan while we were over there. Apparently, a few were there already, but some were brought over to use as a test to see if they could be harnessed like the Dogman werewolf breeding program. They are using DNA to create creatures and then to harness them for essentially the government's bidding or the military's bidding. It backfired, and that's why they had to be taken care of very quickly. There was the one where they actually took the creature, the Nephilim, out of the country. There's a couple of experiences where they were taken out at that in Afghanistan, destroyed and left there. But the main one where there is an Air Force pilot's diary talking about it, that was brought back to the United States or Greenland or wherever to one of these bases to deconstruct, use the DNA and this and that. Now, the book that I had picked up a couple of days prior to talking to him is a book. And it's so weird that there are no coincidences like in any of this information that we all look at. And you guys that have been researching and learning hand in hand with me every day, and other people, that are really researching, not just sharing stories. There are channels out there that research, and I'm a firm believer of that. I don't watch other channels, but I do believe that How to Hunt is one of those channels. David Paulides is one of those channels where, that research is there, that research is done. And, you watch these channels, put your information, you gather that information, and you start to realize, holy shit, there is no coincidence in this shit. So, a couple days before talking to this guy, I had ordered a book. It came within a day of ordering it, which I love the man that wrote this book. Brilliant man. And we lost a great truth teller when Dr. Tom Horn died. But Stephen Quayle, Dr. Horn, Unearthing the Lost World of the Cloud Eaters. I honestly suggest getting this book because it is... So, before talking to him, I had read this and I had scanned through it. I didn't read it. And I saw the title, but just passed through it because it's a very big book. But after that, I remembered once he said they were taking and harvesting the DNA from these creatures, I remembered that. And I went back, grabbed the book off the bookshelf, opened it up, and I was like, oh my God. I'm like, everything this guy is telling me is fucking spot on. Including the whole Greenland. Why are we fighting so hard for an Arctic island, an Arctic country that for years we didn't even talk about? Well, because shit's starting to happen and we want to secure that base. Propagation of Nephilim DNA. I'm just going to share a little bit of this. Earlier, we discussed the DNA. I'm not even going to try to mitochondrial DNA, the haplogroup X in various groups around the world. But We primarily focused on Native American because that was the thrust of the chapter. As we did, we followed the divergence of this DNA and other DNA that seemed to indicate that this DNA sprouted up all by itself. Further studies were presented on the permanent transference of DNA between partners of intercourse. DNA introduced from the male partner stays with the female partner. Male DNA is propagated to the female's offspring, even though a new male partner is the father of the child. But then we reasoned that this was the way that the Nephilim DNA transfer could have occurred thousands of years ago, thereby causing a divergence of the haplogroup X. If you think that is a far-fetched idea, you may be surprised to find out that the Human Genome Project was all about finding Nephilim gene markers in humans. The first report of THPS was published in 2001. At its publication, the National Human Genome Research Institute, or NHGRI director, states it's a history book, a narrative of the journey of our species through time. It's a shop manual with an incredibly detailed blueprint for building every human cell. And it's transformative textbook of medicine with insights that will give healthcare providers immense new powers to treat, prevent, and cure disease. This is very interesting choice of words. Shop manual, where the journey of our species is concerned. Although this author disagrees with the following site's premise about aliens, it does make a good point regarding this double-blind analysis of unexplainable DNA. Essentially, what the government, the scientists of the government are doing, they're not harvesting Nephilim DNA because they have been gone for thousands of years. But the offspring of the Nephilim, the Raphaim, is still present. They are the ones that are here now. They are the offspring of the original Nephilim. Fallen angels, their offspring was the Nephilim. Nephilim offspring is the Raphaim. Now, efforts in regarding harnessing giants' DNA have been going on for decades. When you understand the intent of safeguarding and gathering this DNA, it is also reasonable to conclude that all the mummified remains found in ancient sites knew the day would come when their remains could be reanimated using genetics. The desire to live forever has been on man's mind since the beginning of time. But beyond living forever, today's governments covet the sheer potential of giant DNA. If they are able to harness these genetic markers, they will and are weaponizing them by placing them in super soldiers. They are using the DNA of these. They are using ancient DNA from these fallen angels that created the Nephilim, that then created these creatures, to create a super army. Whether it be, dogmen, humanoid, werewolves. Going back and thinking about what Victor told us about how dogmen are different than the werewolf. The werewolf are very human-like. They have no tail. They're very strong. They do not have hocked legs. They do not have a tail. They have the ability of speech. Is that the creation of, I'm not saying we created that. I'm saying the Nephilim, or the fallen angels and the Nephilim. And not only did the Nephilim breed with humans violently, but the fallen angels did too. The fallen angels also created had genetic experiments with animals. So did Nephilim. So you have a human, or you have a Nephilim DNA mixed with something else. Dogman, because Dogman race had been since Christopher Columbus, freaking Alexander the Great, all these, and they talk about these worlds of Dogman, dog-headed race, cynocephaline. Are they from this dog-headed alien race? Could be. But you've got these races of bipedal humanoid dogs, cynocephaly. What if the Nephilim violently bred with them as well? What would you get? You would get something very similar to a werewolf, correct? Yeah, I mean, all right, not far-fetched, because the government is doing that shit right now. Think about Dulce. People are, oh, it's so far-fetched. Bullshit. In Dulce, per Tom Costello, Bill Cooper, they created these humanoid birthing machines that were human at one point, after kidnapping and women, children, men, and doing just the most revolting, hideous laboratory experiments. They create like a milking breeding machine in Nightmare Hall. It's talked about. It's not new. So doesn't it make sense that, yeah, to me it does. And then the government's like, shit, there's another race of these creatures out there that have been out there for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. Let's see if we can harness the Dogmen and these werewolf-like creatures, get them into the breeding program, use them, weaponize them as super soldiers, just like Victor said. Victor said essentially the werewolf were more of a super soldier than the Dogman. Dogman, complete berserk killing machine. Werewolf thinking. Special ways of doing things because they can think, they can process. Then that statement there got me thinking about something. So that statement prior to, and then this, when the creation of super soldiers, this one got me thinking about what I'm going to share with you next, which is, it makes so much more sense. Just talking with this guy put a lot of the puzzle pieces together, and it was just, holy shit. So Dr. Melba Ketchum, and I understand that, some people disregard her for some reason. I mean, the research is there. She does research. You don't have to, I guess I've heard people talk about her in a negative form. I've never met her. I do disagree with some of the things she has said, but I'm not going to knock her for that. And there's people that do, and I think that's crazy, Just like, I've never met David Paulides. Do I like his view on certain things? No. But I respect his freaking research. He brought the 411 to the eyes of the world. Without his research, no one would be even talking about the 411. So anyway, and this goes hand in hand with Colorado. And it's unbelievable. Dr. Melba Ketchum veterinarian forensic scientist and lead author of a study, claims the crux of what has scientific community in an uproar about. Samples had human mitochondrial DNA, maternal lineage, while the nuclear DNA, the parental lineage, was a structural mosaic consisting of both human DNA and a novel non-human DNA, which did not match any known species in the gen bank. The parental lineage suggests a distant related hominid that evolved separately from humans, apes, and other primates, but evolved to the point where it could be interbred with humans. That brings us only to a couple other things that I can... humans, apes, and other primates, but evolved to the point where they could be interbred with humans. A year ago, this might have been difficult for many scientists to believe, but with the recent studies toting the unknown DNA had been found in ancient hominids, which bred with humans, one has to wonder if their hypothesis is as far off as some believe. That only brings us to this guy and his description of what a Neanderthal truly looks like. But that one statement right there about Dr. Melba Ketchum, that strange unidentified human or unidentified primate gene. So a year and a half to 2 years ago. So a year and a half, 2 years ago, my dad was in the hospital. So a year ago, almost, oh wow, almost a year and a half ago, Meeker, Colorado happened. And there was an attack on cattle in Meeker. All the newspapers were talking about it. And these cattle were just getting torn apart, for those of you that are new to the channel. And, ripped apart. It was terrifying. Some of the photos out of there. People were saying, oh, it's wolves, it's, and the government came out and said, no, it's not wolves. There are no trackable packs of wolves in the area. And there weren't. There was something else. There was two at that point, maybe even more, but two that I know of. Dogman in the area. And a rancher reached out to me and shared the information because his daughter, and son stumbled upon while riding horses a couple miles away from their ranch. Stumbled upon a government kill team killing a dogman in a federal-owned park or preserve. Then, a couple months later, his friend and fellow rancher, behind his ranch is another preserve. And there was a crazy amount of bullets went flying one night, and he heard it from his ranch. The next day he goes out and he does find some casings, not a lot for the amount of bullets that went flying that night. He said to find maybe 5-6 casings there was a cleanup, a scrub. And there was a chunk of hair. There was a chunk of flesh and hair. Pretty big piece too. And he had sent it to me. And I have a friend who owns a veterinarian service. And myself and another guy all met randomly in Vermont, because I had a P.O. box in Vermont where I had this scent. And come to find out, we get it tested, and it comes back Coracata, which is a hyena. I believe the cave hyena, or mountain hyena, one of the two that is was native to America at one point, and an unidentified primate. And here is that hair. And if you look at it, and I've shared this multiple times, I'm not opening the bag because it's just, to me, this is one of my prized possessions. It's so coarse, and it resembles mini porcupine quills. Unidentified primate DNA or hominid DNA with hyena. It's not too far off, is it? It's not too far off. So the second I read that and then talked to Peter, I'm like, holy shit, man. Like this all connects. So you've got on top of these bases, the base in Greenland has dogmen guarding the bases, running quadruped and protecting entrances of these bases, just like in Rene Levasseur. What else are you going to have protect them? Crawlers? Doubtful. They have no fur. They have no hair. But something that can adapt to a cold weather climate would be something that, well, resembles what David Van Drimeny suggests a Neanderthal looks like, which essentially is not a dogman, but a werewolf. What all that matches up with Danny Van Drimeny, what is guarding these Arctic base dogmen, and this is Danny Van Drimeny's, which another great book, Them and Us. There's people that disregard that book as not science, but it is a pseudoscience. What he is, he's a heterodoxal thinker. So every culture has believed in the existence of other beings, monstrous, humanoid, sapient, and inhuman. They have gone by different names: boogeyman, bugbear, cyclops, giant, ogre, on a troll, yeti, Bigfoot, dogman, and more. But they are always feared lurkers in the shadows, threats to the clan, tribe, or hearth. Dungeons and Dragons didn't create these monsters, and despite ongoing controversies, they don't represent anything modern. Humanity's legendary heroes have been fighting these creatures since time immemorial. And then he describes exactly what that book is based on Neanderthal. And then his description of what a Neanderthal looks like is wrapped up into this. And to me, if I were running these programs and wanted to have the ultimate guard, one, I would have crawlers in New Mexico, Colorado, like New Mexico, southern Colorado, Arizona, Utah, those places. Warm areas where there is warmth, or geothermic caves and such, which ironically there are in those areas. And there are a lot of crawler sightings, as well as dogman and Bigfoot, but crawlers thrive in those areas. Van Drimeny shows us that Neanderthal were apex predators. Analysis of isotope of the bone college has shown Neanderthals' diet is 97% meat. They were cannibals Neanderthals had more robust bones and heavier musculature, weighed 25% more than humans. They were so heavily muscled that their skeletons had to develop extra thick bones. One of the most characteristic features of Neanderthal is its exaggerated massiveness in their trunk and limb bones. All of the preserved bones suggest a strength seldom achieved by modern human. Quoting a paleoanthropologist, Eric Trinkus, a healthy Neanderthal male could lift the average NFL linebacker over his head and throw him through a goalpost. Neanderthals also evolved extremely thick skull, postcranial hyperrobustity that protected them in close quarter confrontations. They had a distinct gait. Their teeth were twice as large as humans and sharp. According to 2008 anthropologist research, their mouths could open much wider than humans, enabling them to take extremely large bites. Judging by the size of the jaw, they had tremendous bite force. Now, this is where Neanderthal evolved in the Ice Age. Van Germany points out that every primate except for Homo sapien is covered with fur, and that every cold-adapted mammal during the Ice Age had thick fur, including those that are hairless in Africa, such as the elephant and rhinoceros. There's no reason to believe Van Diemen's Neanderthals were hairless, except for our desire for them to look like us. Broad noses, Neanderthal distinct facial prognathism that featured large, broad noses. Van Diemen argues that this suggests a Neanderthal snout with a dog-like nose designed for hunting. They didn't speak human language. Instead, their large nasal cavity would have decreased the intelligibility of vowel sounds. And combination of a long face, short neck, unequal proportioned vocal tract, large nose makes it unlikely. They just used a lot of guttural grunts and other kinds of growls. So, in essence, Van Diemen's Neanderthal is a terrifying creature, a hunched cannibalistic predator with large shining eyes, an animalistic snout covered in thick fur, massive muscles built for close combat, hunting at night with brutish and guttural voice, and a large mouth with teeth and powerful jaws. It didn't look like Fred Flintstone. Are you going to have humans with M4s guarding these non-existent deep underground military bases in Greenland, in the Arctic? No. You're going to have something that evolved from the Ice Age. Something that is so genetically adapted to cold weather climate. Yet these are the perfect guard dog, no pun intended. So all this is making sense. And I asked Peter, I said, well, as he's sharing all this, my brain is going, just like in this video, all these ideas are coming to me. I read this, I remember that. I remember, it's like that board, that whiteboard with all these kind of pop-ups of equations and this and that. That's literally how my freaking brain was the other day. I asked about, the breeding program. He was not affiliated with it, but he knows of it. And one of the largest facilities for it is in Virginia, pretty close to an area of CIA training grounds. Why else or where else would you keep them except pretty much in an open area where no one's going to go looking for these things there, especially in vulnerable. It just, none of this, you can't deny it. You can't freaking deny it. So I said, what about Victor? Yeah, they exist. There's teams of them. They are controlled by the CIA. Even though the CIA works abroad, they are essentially connected with Homeland Security, Department of Homeland Security. They have been used in negotiations, physical negotiations with, other countries and this and that. So yeah. And then he said, it's interesting, Jeff, because for some reason, the CIA backing with Homeland Security for these reptilian hunting, or not reptilian, cryptid hunting parties like Victor and that are essentially all taken out of the Marine Corps. Just like what he said, just like what Victor said to us, So all of this is, piecing together. And he says that on those rare occasions, those attacks that are overlooked and media covered up, they are essentially training missions for these creatures. They are sent out to do a hunt. And then if anyone is ever aware of that, they will be taken and put down and da-da-da. So it's all right there, And then I was like, holy shit. I thought literally about Jesse and his son. And I thought about the location of where the Virginia base would be to where Jesse's son was attacked. And it's not that far. It's not that far from Virginia. So these training missions essentially have been going on since the 60s? Since they first brought Dogman, werewolf, and unsuccessful Bigfoot. And then when Victor said that the Bigfoot was not successful, I don't know if you guys remember it, but there was kind of an upsetness in his voice, because Bigfoot Essentially, if you could harness them, like Dogman, like werewolf, an amazing hunter, an amazing ally for these teams. I mean, essentially Dogman, by Victor's using these creatures, or the government using the breeding program, they are an ally, right? They're doing their bidding. So these animals are being tested, used on, the nation's populace, and then they go in and hunt them and take them down. It's all fucking connected. He's gonna sit down in the next couple of days and he's gonna share one experience that he is aware of, because there's hundreds and thousands of hidden, it's so deep, man. And if anybody can deny this information that is just shared, if you can deny the information that I just shared, because to me, it makes a lot of sense. Maybe I'm wrong, but to deny it and say this is far-fetched, then how do you believe in Bigfoot, Dogman, werewolf, crawlers? You can't. You can't, because there's so many unanswered questions. All you can do is wait for those questions to be answered. It's all right there. Anyway, he's going to write down one of the a detailed account of when a genetically engineered creature or creatures were used, the super soldier, and which is crazy because they are using Raphaim DNA to inject into humans and create. So, I mean, anyway, we'll wait for his experience, or one of his, I guess, experience, where he essentially wasn't part of it, but he is aware of it. Just like he doesn't know, he knows of the government cryptid hunting team and the breeding program, but he was not part of that. He was in another clandestine kind of thing, using these creatures. And Victor did say they had been used abroad at one point too. With that, I'd like to thank you all for supporting the channel. It is your support, after all, that helps this channel to continue to grow and go. It gives us all a place and a chance to share our experiences and theories, judgment-free. Everyone is simply treated with the respect that we deserve. Please stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, and friends. These creatures are real. These events have happened. Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for the truth. And God bless you all.